we all have a personal relationship with Jesus. We all have our walk with Jesus. We don't know why things happen to us the way they happen. There are people who will experience one thing and other people will experience another thing.
All right, well, welcome back. We just still thrilled to have you. One thing I failed to do when I first introduced them is that they're doctors, right? It's Dr. Craig and Dr. Médine. We're thrilled to have you. Wanted to sort of jump back on something that we talked a little bit, which is that, you know, we just finished an event that had a portion that was for the youth. Those that were looking like they're going to be heading off to university were included there. And there was we're just so thankful for God moving in the ministry and the wonderful stories and testimonies of His impartation for the very first time encountering, and they're becoming sort of like their own clear glass of water, like you said. It's not their parents or their grandparents anymore. It's their experience, it's their encounter. And one of the things that you notice in the students you see going to university is this crisis of faith. And I wanted to know if you, when talking, I know that you didn't have the same kind of crisis of faith as I think as we think about here, which is like, I go there, I've never heard any of these things being taught. Now I don't know if God's real. I don't even know if I can believe anything anymore, and it's just this whole deconstructed event. Didn't sound like that happened to you, but you had different type of crisis of faith from, and I wonder if you could share a little bit about that.
Okay. Well, let me share first about the university in Congo. When I came to the university, it was a cultural shock because I grew up in smaller town, so Brazzaville for me was a huge place, and I did know a lot of people, and I had to find my way, how to get to the university, and so on. So as I was learning all of that, something happened, something I discovered. I don't know if, maybe it doesn't happen here in the US, but in Africa, in many African countries, it's called sex for grades. Professors will target students, and what they want is in exchange for sexual favors, they will give you grades. Personally, I thought that was very demeaning because it was saying that a young woman doesn't have the brain to study for themselves. And the other thing was that I didn't want that. I was a child of God. And so I had this professor who was really after me. And sometimes we even walk by the place where I lived and so on. So in the midst of all of that, people knew that I was a Christian. And so some students will make fun of me, like they will call me sister in Christ or things like that. I started to wonder, is this worth it? You know, all the things that I'm experiencing. All around me, there were young women who were like, oh, you know what, I want to pass this course, I'm going to do it. But the Lord helped me in that He brought in someone who became my closest friend. And as two young Christian women praying together, working together, the Lord used us to encourage one another. Today, Julienne is still my best friend when I go to Congo, and we share everything. But it was an amazing season for us. She was struggling with her faith. I was struggling with mine. We came together and realized that Jesus is the real deal. And so that really helped us. The second phase for me was when I went to France as an international student. It was huge, a very huge cultural gap and shock. But what helped me when I was a student in France was my first day in France, how the Lord helped me. So if we have time, I'm just going to share that day. I got at the airport. I was dressed in African clothes, like flip-flops, very light cotton dress. It was, it was very, very cold. I think it was the coldest season in a long time, winter in a long time in France. So when I stepped outside, I was like, oh my word, what am I doing here? what is happening? The shock was so much that I almost started to cry. I was like, I want to go home. I don't want to stay into this strange place. There was a bus that took us to the Congolese embassy. And we had to wait so that they will give us the first scholarship for us to go in all the different places where we were going. In a group of the students where I came, I was the only young woman. Wow. And so I didn't know what to do, who to address. I did not know the students. I was not even supposed to be there, and the Lord really moved, and that's another story. He intervened for my name to be there. And so as I was waiting, I was hungry. The students who came, the male students, I guess they knew each other. They had food. They had people who went and bought food. No one will come and talk to me. And as I waited, I saw a friend come. We went to school together. It was the day where they were also paying the students in France their scholarship. And her name was Angeline. You know, the name Angel is inside her name. And so she came, she said, "Oh, Médine, it's good to see you. How are you? Have you eaten?" I mean, she was so caring. She took me to a restaurant, fed me, bought me a scarf to protect me and so on. And she said goodbye. And so most of the students, they were going in groups of 3s and 4s and 2s. I was the only one going to the north of Congo. There was a man to the north of France, to Lille, and there was a man who was supposed to take me. Each group had a person taking you to the train station, and this man, he started to mutter things like, "Why do women have to study?" I mean, he was not happy, and so I just followed him with my suitcase and my African clothes. We got into the subway, the metro. And the guy told me, said, "Okay, you jump." Now, jumping means I was not going to pay for the fare for the metro. I was boldly in front of everyone cheating the subway and telling everyone that I'm not paying because I didn't have a ticket. And so I didn't know. I said, "How do I do this?" "Just jump." He took my suitcase and I jumped the fence. Instead of you put your ticket and then it opens, I jumped the fence. People were like...
But she didn't know.
I did not know I was cheating. I had I've never been in France, never been in the metro. And I mean, there were French people saying, "Look at these Africans. She can't even pay for the ticket." I felt shame. I was like, I thought the embassy gave money for us to pay for the ticket. But anyway, the guy is like, "Come on, let's go." So I followed him. We entered into a metro, and then we changed, and then we came into another metro. I was completely lost. And then he left me. He said, "Okay, well, my girlfriend is over there. I need to go. You just do the correspondance." I didn't know correspondance meant to change the train. Correspondance also means to write a letter in French. And so he's like, "You do the correspondence and you go where you're going." And he gave me the ticket, the train ticket, and left. And I was standing there. The metro has gone, people have gone, but there were these, in France they call them punk, you know, with green hairdo and so on. I was afraid, like not afraid. What's the biggest word to say? I was
terrified.
I was like, what am I doing here? Lord, what if something happens to me? I don't know these people. Even my French was not good. And so I was glued there. Another metro came in, people came out of the metro and milled over. I just stood there. I was so frozen. And I was like, he's asking me to do the correspondence. Should I write a letter? To whom am I supposed to write the letter? Where do I get the envelope? I mean, where do I pay for the stamp? I had all these questions. And then the next metro came in, and here comes Angeline. She's like, "Médine, what are you doing here?" I said, "Well, the guy who was supposed to take me just said, do the correspondence, and then I have to go to La Gare du Nord, and then got in a train. Do you know where I'm supposed to get the paper or the envelope to write the letter?" She's like, oh, she was so upset. She said, "Okay, Where's your ticket? I said, I don't have a ticket. She said, how did you get into the metro? I said, the man said, jump. She was so mad. She said, okay, just wait. So she went outside because I couldn't get out of the train without a ticket. She went and bought a ticket for me. She came back and she said, what's your train ticket? She said, you only have 15 minutes. We have to run. So we got into the metro and we got to the train station. She said, okay, you do as I'm doing. Just put your ticket in there. It will open the door for you. And I did. And she said, let's run. So we ran. We got into the train. I'm getting into the train. She said, this last wagon is not going to where you're going. You have to go and find the place where it says Lille. And then the train started going and it automatically locked me. I said, okay, Lord. I'm like, was it really God's? Was it really your will for me to be in here? Okay, I need to find Lille. That's all I knew. So I went in and I started to look for the wagons. I mean, between two wagons, it was just scary. My dad worked all his life on the railroad, but our railroad was very different from the one in France and the speed and so on. Anyway, I found myself in where it says Lille. I said, okay, this is where I'm supposed to sit. It was a smoking car. I didn't know that they had smoke cars and non-smoking cars, but I didn't know where to go, so I sat. And every time the train was going, when it will come to a stop, when the people were talking into the loudspeaker, I didn't understand anything they were saying. So I didn't know if I had passed my stop or if I was still on my way to get there. But the train continued to go, and then I saw a black woman coming at one of the train stops. And she came and sat by me. And she looked at me, she said, oh, honey, you must be cold. She started to talk to me. Where are you from? I said, I'm from Congo. I was so sad. And she's like, it's okay. What part of the world? I say, it's Africa. She said, where are you going? I said, I'm going to Lille. She said, oh, that's where I'm going. It's okay. We'll go together. And she talked with me and I felt encouraged, warm inside. She said, just stick by me. So I stuck by her and I sat there. And then we got to Lille and she said, have you eaten? I said, well, I ate a long time ago. She said, okay, just wait here. She went and bought fries and mayonnaise, and they don't do fries with ketchup, mayonnaise.
Wow.
and brought it to me. She said, where are you going? I said, well, I was supposed to come 2 days ago, but because there was a strike, a student strike in Congo, I couldn't make it. The person who was supposed to come pick me up in Paris didn't come. So, but I have a phone number. I didn't have money. I did not have French money. I just have a traveler's check. It was already like 10 p.m. I didn't know where I was going to sleep. She's like, so where are you going to sleep? Where are you going? I said, I don't know. The only thing I have is this phone number. So she took the phone number. She called. And the person said, oh, yes, we were expecting her 2 days ago. She didn't come. The lady's like, she's here. She was so funny. She's like, who are you? What's your name? Are you a student? Okay, what are you wearing? Okay, she's here. She's wearing this. How do I trust you? I mean, she asked all these questions to ascertain that this was the right person who's coming to pick me up. And she waited. Because people were going. I mean, people were coming and going, but there were people who were so suspicious. She just stood there with me, an old African, black woman. And then she said, okay, this is my phone number. She wrote it down. She said, I'll give it to you. I want you to call me tomorrow morning. I want to make sure you're okay. I said, sure, I will. And then the student came, picked me up, and we went. The next morning, I was like, the first thing I'm going to do is thank this lady. And I called, and they said, yes. I gave the phone number. He said, yes, this is the phone number. I said, can I speak to Mrs. So-and-so? And they say, she doesn't exist. I was like, pardon me? I talked with her yesterday. They just said she doesn't exist. So I say, thank you. And that, what happened that day was like a memory place for me for all my years in France, for all the struggles that I went through, for the racism that I experienced and things like that, because I will remember that God sent someone to help me on a day where I could have disappeared. I could have died. It was during that season in France, a lot of young women were being either sold into sex trafficking or found dead. Anything could have happened to me. I was an easy target. Someone coming to Congo, naive, and easily anyone could see. There was a sign, the clothes I was wearing and so on. It was just a sign saying, here she is, come take her, all the wolves, you can come and get her. But the Lord sent someone, two people, a person I knew, Angeline, and that lady to help me. So that really will come to mind when life was hard as a student in France.
Oh, that's a wonderful story.
And life was hard. I mean, there were times when, as a student from Congo, we didn't have the scholarship and we didn't have money. So I'll wait until everyone is done eating in the university cafeteria. They had a place where they will throw things that people didn't eat. So I'll get the bread. Most of the things I had at home was sugar, and I'll put sugar in water. I'll eat that. Also at that time, in France, at least in the north of Congo, in Lille, the big department store, Auchan, they had places in the back where they'll put all the fruits that people didn't eat, especially bananas. I used to sell bananas in Congo, so I'll go there and try to find some bananas in the trash can and use that. But during that time, when I will wonder, I say, God, you send me here, but it looks like things are hard. I don't have a job that can help me. I'm an international student. We cannot get loans. So every little money that I have to use it to pay for my studies. It was very difficult. And I remember a year when I did not have enough money to pay for my studies, for the fees. And I could remember my father saying, don't ever owe anyone anything except love. I did not have anything. So I went to a friend. I told her, she was French. I said, Miriam, I really need help. Could you lend me money? I will reimburse you in 2 months when I get paid. My father always say, don't owe anything. I'm not supposed to do this, really, but there is no way. The bank will not look at me. She said, sure. And it was the hardest 2 months of my life to be able to come up with the money and reimburse her. And I felt like the burden was lifted from my heart as soon as I did that. So the Lord helped me.
And there were times at your church where there was money left for you?
Yes, in the offering. I had times when I will go to church and I didn't have anything. The week was coming, I didn't have money. And somebody will come, the person who was doing the ushering will come to me and say, hey, there is an envelope with your name. Some of them would even laugh, say, there's always envelopes in your name. I'm like, sorry. And I'll open the envelope. There is nothing, no card, no letter, nothing, just money. Whether it's 10 francs, 20 francs. But that money will be enough for me to eat for a few days. There were also times when, because I had to go to the university, where I lived was far from the university. I had to take a bus, the metro, and sometimes another bus to get to the university. Going to the university, it was okay. I'll wake up early in the morning praying for God's protection, and I'll walk until I get to the metro. Once I get to the metro, I used to say, Lord, I'm going to at least get to the metro. I don't have money. Once I get to the metro, someone will come to me and say, oh, I just bought this. At that time, in the metro in France, you can use your ticket. The ticket was 1 hour. You can get into the buses, into the metro. You can go wherever you want to go as long as it's within those 1 hour. Mm-hmm. So the person will give me a ticket. They've used it. It gave me time to come to the university. And then when I was ready to go back home, I'm like, Lord, I can't sleep outside here in the metro. Something will happen to me. And I'll go to the metro and wait, and someone will say, hey, here. And it was enough time for me to get the metro, go to the bus station, get the bus, and get to the place where I was living.
And you did that numerous times to get to and from the university. The Lord was providing through people.
Yes. Either the Lord will provide from someone giving me money in the church, or the Lord will provide someone coming out of the metro and saying, hey, I just use it for 5 minutes.
Wow.
And I will be able to use it. So God was gracious to me.
At the Empire of Evil,
that's the university. I talked about the university in Congo.
But you didn't talk about how the Lord delivered you when that professor who was stalking you.
Oh, yeah. So remember the professor I said in Congo who was stalking me, coming to my place. Sometimes I will come to class. I didn't have money to get the bus, so I'll run, and I might come to class like 10 minutes late, and he will stop the whole class. It will be like the spotlight on Médine. I used to feel like, Lord, I want us to disappear. And he will start talking about, one day he will possess students, he will call students' name, throw in my name. I'm like, I don't want this. I don't want to be at the spotlight. Anyway, years later, I'm a student in France, and this time, instead of being in Lille, I was now in a PhD program in Paris. So I used to go back and forth. The same train that I took that day, it became like, I almost lived today. I studied in there because I would go in the morning from Lille to Paris, have class, and then go back in the evening. And so I was talking with friends. We met with some other friends from Congo who were also students in Paris. And as we are going into this metro stop, taking the moving lift, we saw the professor coming down, and he's like, oh, my students. He called us by names and so on. So we were all excited, and we went down to meet with him and talk with him. And he looked at me and said, Moussounga, that's my name. He's like, your God is alive.
Wow.
I said, yes. Because every time when I was a student in Congo, every time we had an oral exam, we had 2 professors, that professor and another one. And every time the professor who was after me was given the top of the list, my name was the first one in the bottom list. And every time he was given the bottom list, my name was the last one on the top list. I never had an oral exam with him, because that's where they will just say, okay, you do it. You don't do it, sorry, you will not pass the class. I never had it with him. So he just recognized and said, yes, your God is alive. I was like, thank you, Jesus. Yeah, God's good. Yeah. God's good. Now, not everyone went through this, okay? And who will experience one thing and other people will experience another thing. And I don't know why. I had a friend who, she had a professor after her, and after her, finally the professor was like, you come and get your, I don't know if it was a midterm exam at my house. She said, what am I going to do? So she went to the professor's house, and she said, okay. She stood outside. In some African countries and cultures, once you step foot inside, you are saying, okay, I'm here to welcome whatever you're giving me, the food and so on. So you stay outside. It's like, oh, we're just going to talk outside. And she said, okay, sir, I'm really, really happy. But she came up with a story. She said, my father is okay for us to get married because he's taught me that, sex before marriage is not good. So I'm willing. It's okay. The professor was so scared, like, wait, what are you talking about? He was married. He gave her the paper, and that was the end of it. So you have things like that. And then you have those who were raped. And you have, like my friend Julien, the professor could not get her. He came to class and said, Julien is dead. And I remember Julien and I coming to her class and students jumping out saying, a ghost, a ghost. I said, wait a minute. This is not a ghost. This is Julien. You know Julien. And they were like, you touching her? I said, of course. What happened? So they told the story that the professor said that she has died to try to discredit her. We all go through life through different experiences. But I think that whatever we have, God meets us there. And He has something for us and for others in whichever way He wants the story to unfold in our lives. And sometimes I do believe that there are evil people. God is not evil. But somebody evil will come and take away something precious from someone. And I still believe that God has the power to use it again. I mean, when we bring that to Him, He has the power to help us. Can I unpack here? Just give a story. In Congo, a lot of young women are raped. People are just so mean that they take away something from you that is precious. And it brings, it puts a scar in someone. You're traumatized and you're bitter and you have shame and you feel guilty. There's so much going on. I remember my mom, she said, let me tell you a story. She was getting to a point. And when she says, let me tell you a story, it was, come on, this is the time, listen. And so we were listening to her. She said, there was this lady who went to the fields. And as she was working with a hoe or a machete, something happened and she cut herself. And my mom was like, when we cut ourselves, we take the mud and put there, right? Yes, that's what we do. She said, wrong, that's wrong. You go to the doctor. The lady did the same thing. Or you go to the dispensaire. Or you go see an infirmière, because the doctor, we don't have that much. And so she put some mud where on the foot where she cut herself and came home and went on with her life. The mud was still there because it was caked on. And then after a couple of days, she started to feel chills, and then she had fever, and she couldn't put her foot on the floor. It was all infected. Somebody came and said, you need to go to the dispensaire. She said, I can't walk. So they took her to the dispensaire. And when she got there, the head nurse said, this is bad what you did. You covered up something that should have been put in the open. I'm going to remove the mud cake. I'm going to clean it. It's going to hurt. But that's the only way for you to be healed. And that's what he did. He cleaned. My mom graphically talked about, the pus and the blood and how hard and how the lady cried out and in pain. And she said, but the man put the medicine there and the lady couldn't walk. They had to take her back. And he said, come back in 3 days. In 3 days, she was hobbling on her feet. And when she got there, the person removed it and said, oh, wow, that's looking good. Okay, you come back in 3 more days. In 3 more days, she could walk. And then when the guy looked at you, say, okay, this is good. Now you can go. You are fine. It's going to heal. You don't need to come back. And she got healed. And my mom said, there are things that happen to us. When you keep them hidden and bottled up, they'll just infest. What's the word? Infecté. Okay? They'll get infected and get bad. And I'll say that your life will come to like a kind of standstill where you can't really move forward or do anything, because what is infected in you is a lot. And she says, God is our first source where we go. We go to God. He opens the wound and cleans the wound and helps us. It might hurt. The hurt is necessary. But in the long run, we will go through life. We might have a scar, but hey, we will go through life. So sometimes life is hard. And I've seen that sometimes Julianne and I, because of God's grace, we shared and we talked, and the things that we experience, we will talk, we will pray. We will share, we will pray. And sometimes it's good to talk to someone, but the biggest person to talk to and the friend, our friend, is Jesus. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, whatever you're going through, whether it's personal, emotional, physical, whatever it is, I hope it's like the person who allowed the head nurse to just remove all of the gunk and everything, even if it hurts. But to know that there is healing at the end. The Lord is there. He sees us. He understands us. He cares for us. And He's just waiting for us to say, yes, come and touch me and heal me. Yeah.
That's so good. That is so good. Amen. We say yes to that prayer. Yes and amen for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Blessed a lot of people there, Médine. I don't know if there's anything you wanted to ask, but I did want to connect, or just a question, really, because I know from the book that you grew up, your dad, Papa Jacques, had a gift of healing on his life for sure.
Yep.
He also seems like a mighty prayer warrior. Like even when he couldn't really do anything else, he was contending for the family in prayer, and those prayers were answered.
Yes.
And so there was a theme of the supernatural, certainly in your story when you returned to the Congo after you finished your studies. Mm-hmm. And I'm wondering, were those present in your early childhood as well? Did you see the manifest presence of God moving and healing and power and all through your younger years?
Yes, I guess that's the reason why I felt so comfortable in the role of being a grandchild to Jesus, to God, instead of becoming a child of God. Because, God was so present. Now, I have to say that the spiritual world in Congo is sometimes palpable. The evil, people don't talk about it here. I don't laugh about things like Harry Potter's. No, I told my son, you're not going because witchcraft. I told David's teacher, I said, I'm sorry, he's not going to read that book because in Congo, witchcraft is a reality. You don't play with that world. And she's like, okay. But witchcraft is a reality. Demons exist and all these things. And so, yes, I saw God work in miraculous ways. My father will pray for people. People will be healed. My father prayed for me. I was 9, 8, I don't remember. We were in a village, and when my father worked in towns, small towns, it was easier because there was a dispensary, there was medicine and so on. In villages, there was a dispensary. We did not always have medicine. And I remember I got very sick. I had like the kind of migraine where I couldn't see the light, I couldn't hear noise, and I had fever. I don't know what was going on. Something was wrong with me. They took me to the dispensary. I will always remember it's the only shot I got on my belly. I was like, are you sure it's not going to go down and touch my intestine? Anyway, the guy was like, no, it's okay. But it didn't do anything. They brought me home. My mom was very worried. There was a train only twice in the day, early in the morning and in the evening. And sometimes train had troubles. So if you have to run to the nearest city to take your person who is sick, they might die. I remember being in a train where the person died because they couldn't get to the... So my mom was worried. Say, Jacques, something is wrong with Médine. My father said, okay. So he came. He came for lunch, but he came into the room. So he called me, said, Médine, wake up. I woke up. He said, can you come to my room? I said, of course. I was wearing like blanket. I was so cold. I couldn't, I was shaking. So he said, we're going to pray. He had the shortest prayer ever that I have heard. I have heard stories and I've seen friends say, oh, Médine, my uncle prayed for food. We opened our eyes and ate and finished eating. He was still praying. I said, no, my dad doesn't pray like that. My dad has short prayers. So he said, we're going to pray. So he said something very simple like, Lord, heal my daughter Médine, please, in Jesus' name. And that was it. He said, amen. And then he came to my level. He said, Médine, I want you to do something for me. I said, okay. He said, do you trust me? I said, of course I trust. Hey, he was my hero. Of course I trusted him. He said, okay, I want you to go and take a bucket bath. I looked at my dad as if he has grown horn or something. Bucket bath means that was water that was held the day before, that has been sitting in our bathroom, and it was cold. I had high fever. I was shivering. The fact that he said, go take a bath, I could feel the goosebump. I was like, he said, do you trust me? I said, yes. He said, it's okay. Go take a bath. We just prayed. Jesus heard our prayer. I said, okay. So I went and I got ready. Even the thought of putting my hands in that water made me so cold. But as soon as my hands touched the water, the fever left me.
Come on.
It was the best bucket bath I ever had. And I was healed. I was jumping and I was like, whoa, I went outside and played. So that is a story. That's something that happened to me. And in my young faith, even though I was not ready yet to commit, I knew God is real. Yeah. And God touches us and God heals. And when we pray, He hears. And so, yes, the spiritual was always there as a child. Another story I can tell you is the story of my sister. Everybody calls my sister Lazarus. My sister had meningitis. She was not even a toddler yet. I don't know how old she was. I don't think she was 2 years old. And it was bad. And they took her to the hospital. Now, that was the hospital run by French people at that time. The French doctor saw my dad and he said, this is bad. So when he was leaving, he told the nurse, he said, that baby is going to die tonight. And he left. My father prayed. He prayed. A friend of his visited and said, Jacques, I think you have to be realistic. This is a time now to start getting people ready so tomorrow we can go get the coffin and get things ready. The child is gone. My father said, give me the night. I'm not doing anything. Now, my father lost a child when he and his wife, they were still young, and they had a baby, a beautiful baby boy. And that child got sick, and the child died. When you lose a child, there's a hole. There's something missing. I know, because we had miscarriages and there's always something missing. And so to lose a second child, he told the Lord, he said, I can't take this. I just can't take this. I need you. And so all night long, he stayed there by that bed and he was praying, Jesus, I need you to touch my daughter. And he told my mom, give me some water, some milk or something. He put it by the baby's mouth so the baby can. And I guess towards the end of the night, Gracia, that's my sister, she started to lap a little bit. And then in the morning, the doctor came and said, so the baby died? And the nurse is like, no, she's still breathing. The doctor is like, what? If she's breathing, means she's not going to die. So he came into the room and he looked at my father and said, who is your God? my father said, I'll talk to you about Jesus. And he gave him the opportunity to talk to the doctor about Jesus. Gracia was not healed instantly. No, Gracia did not die. And over the days and weeks, she got stronger. Today, Gracia is a mother of 2. She's a grandmother of 2. And she's doing well. The only thing is like she writes using her left hand. But there is nothing.
What about your older sister?
Now we won't finish. Come on. Okay.
Now, when you said Lazarus, I thought you were going to talk about Therese.
No. Because the person who came that evening was an evangelist. When he saw Gracia, he knew the child was going to die in a matter of minutes or just hours.
The doctor?
No.
The evangelist.
The evangelist.
Wow.
He also knew that that child is going to die. And so when the child lived, he said, Jacques, this is Lazarus. Actually, during his life, the evangelist Ngani Martin will always call Gracia Lazarus. Because for him, it was the reminder of what God did that night. God heard the cry of a couple that lost a child and that said, we can't go through that pain again. Please help us. And he came through and he helped them. Yeah.
But your older sister, Therese.
Do you?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. When my mom, my parents got married, they were young. They didn't know each other, okay? So it was like an arranged marriage. But one thing was sure, my father was a Christian. My mom was in a missionary school where she was baptized. Actually, later on, she fully gave her life to Christ. So by the time she had Therese, and then she had Dieudonné.
How many are in? How many siblings do you have?
We are 7. 2 are with Jesus, and my parents are also with Jesus. So Dieudonné is the one who died when he was maybe a year or so, something like a few months old. I don't know. I don't remember. And so when she had Dieudonné and that child died, it was traumatic for them. It was really traumatic. My father, they say that in Congo, men are not supposed to cry, cry out loud. He's like, forget about tradition. I heard, and I cry. He was a good man. He was larger than life. Anyway, so he cried. And he will cry whenever he was hurting, or I guess maybe it was a gift. I don't know. But he had the gift of crying. He cried a lot. And then one day, Therese was a child, not even 5 yet, and she cried out. And when my mom came, there was a snake, there was the daughter. The daughter has stopped breathing. Now, think about this woman. She has lost a child. And here she is in a different village. And we have tensions between tribes. And so it's not even in her village. And she finds herself with a dead child. She went and called my father, who was working in the railroad at the station there. And they went to a friend who was an evangelist.
Your father was out of town, actually, at that point.
Oh.
Yeah, sorry.
Go ahead.
Oh.
Craig interviewed my mom. So, yes, because he wanted to get the fact better than, I would give them. So go ahead, because she told you.
Well, you translated, but anyway.
I did.
So, Therese wasn't breathing, and there was no medical help available in the village. So, Madame Jacques, Médine's and Therese's mother, this was before Médine was born, so that's why.
Come on.
That's why we had to interview her mom to get the full story. So she strapped the child to her back and she ran to a nearby village where a family friend, evangelist Coco Ngoma Moise, was doing ministry. And Coco Moise prayed. Therese started breathing again. The next day she was fine. Well, I asked Madame Jacques, my mother-in-law, how long was it that Therese wasn't breathing? So she had to think to get from this village to that village. And I had to go up this hill. So she said about 3 hours. Well, you know, 6 minutes with no oxygen, irreparable brain damage has started in. But Therese has no brain damage.
No.
Therese has a master's degree now. Therese...
she's a retired pastor now.
Yeah.
She still preaches.
Yeah.
Wow.
And not to doubt one's mother-in-law, but we did confirm the story with Coco Moise, who was the other witness.
Yeah.
Wow. That's amazing. That's so good. So God's definitely been intervening on behalf of you and your family from a very early age. And what we've found, at least in practice, is particularly for those that are young and transitioning, is as important as we know the word is, theology is, reading it and understanding it and applying it, also having the formative encounters and experiences, people, receiving a healing, feeling the manifest presence of God, feeling the empowering, goes a long way towards solidifying them. Even if they get into a situation such as you did when you go to France or whatever, it's like, listen, I don't understand, and maybe I only understood in part, and so I'm going to continue to renew and expand, but I know beyond a shadow of a doubt that He is for me and that He's real and that He's at work in my life. So that's one of the reasons, that's why we really go after that with the kids and the youth and all adults. It's like that's just can be such a rich anchor, especially when married to an understanding of the Bible and an appreciation for its place.
I also emphasize the importance of the testimony. There's someone's testimony, but healing gives faith to somebody that may have something similar. But not just that testimony in a meeting. Really emphasize the importance, like what happened in your life. You knew the stories.
Yes.
So they were told to you.
My mom read the Bible to us every night.
Yeah, the importance of parents telling the stories. Yes. And not just the Bible stories.
Yes.
But this God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob is the God of our family.
Yeah. I remember having questions about Jesus, like, is he someone we can see? And you come to an age where you have questions. My father said, let me tell you a story. And when he started like that, okay. He's like, now this is my friend. It's in this village. I think it was Deshavan. He said, my friend was very sick. And my friend was asking Jesus to come and touch him. And we were like, whoa, did he come in person? Children, I said, listen. So my friend is in bed. His wife has gone to maybe to the market or to the river to get some water. And he's like, not feeling well. My dad used to dramatize stories. And then he said he heard someone come into the house. He said, who's there? And he could hear the shoes going tuck, tuck, tuck. And the feet were leading the person to his room. And he was like, he could not. He said, I've been asking for Jesus. Is this Jesus? Can I see him? He was so afraid. And my father said, when Jesus opened his room, he was so afraid. He said, But what happened was Jesus disappeared. The person was healed. My father said, he could have let not let fear take over and see what Jesus looked like, but he was too afraid. And, as children, I was like, I am afraid to see Jesus. He's like, you don't have to be afraid. If not, you miss out. Maybe Jesus was going to give something to my friend, but he was too afraid. But anyway, the fact that they told stories to help us know it's okay. It's the Lord, and He's real, and there are people who have seen them, and in their own lives, the kind of things that they saw. Another story? Sorry.
We love stories around here, honestly.
My father went to the village, and he didn't have money to build his house. He hadn't built his own house yet, so he stayed with his half-brother and his family, and we will stay in the same place. There were 2 rooms. So there was a room for the parents, and then there was a room, for my parents, and then there was a room for his brother and his wife, and then there were children's room. My parents' children, we stayed with his sister. So the two of them, a couple, they will stay there. That's where they spend the night. But other than that, during the day, we were all together. It happened that day that his half-brother was called on mission for work. My mom went to visit her mother in another village. It was just my dad and his half-brother's wife. And I mean, we used to have time when we say, tell us stories. We're going to interview you. So we will write. I have all these things written down because that's just how my mind worked. It was very weird, but I thank God for that. And he said there was an attraction that he could feel, especially from the lady. And he was like, this is not good. This will lead to sin, and it shouldn't work like that. But she sat there and talked with him, and she's like, well, let's go outside. They went outside and talked, and he could feel, he said, Médine, I could feel myself weakening in my resolve. And I could see sin coming by the door of my heart. And he said, it was almost midnight. And I cried out to God. I said, God, I can't resist this. So this is teaching us sexual purity.
Wow.
And he said, what happened next is something that is just God. Somebody came in and he had a suitcase. He said, hi folks, I'm so sorry, but I just came from the train. He said, we didn't hear the buses. Usually when the train is coming, you'll see buses coming from the train station. The train station was a little bit far. He said, but I didn't see any bus come, nothing. But I was so happy for the interruption because it helped me like, what are you thinking, Jacques? What are you thinking? And so he looked at the person and said, oh, okay, that's good. He said, my family is so and so and so. They live in this area, but it's very far. Do you think I can spend the night here with you? My father was like, yes, before the lady will say anything. So she said, okay, he said, okay, let's come in. Because for him, he said, I saw the Lord deliver me. And so they put, back home we have a mat. They put a mat on the floor. The lady went in and took some bedding and put on the floor. And my father finally went to his room and prayed and asked the Lord, said, thank you, Jesus, because tomorrow my wife is coming. This was wrong. And so the lady couldn't come to his room, or he didn't want to go to her room because there was someone there in the living room in the middle. And so he slept in peace. When they woke up, the guy was gone. The bedding was put together, and the amazing thing, the door was locked. The lady was like, wait, Jacques, what happened? We had a ghost. We had something. My father was like, what we were thinking yesterday was wrong before God. And the person who came here, God sent that person to deliver us from sin.
Wow.
That was not a ghost. And so he said, always know, even when you are weak, God's there. Cry out to him. He'll help you one way or another. So that's enough with my family.
Oh, man. I could listen to your stories all day.
Sorry.
For sure. They're amazing. And when we return, we'll probably hear some more stories. I know we're going to get from Craig here some stories of miracles as well. So look forward to seeing you guys when we return.
Hey, thanks for watching the video. If you like the content that you receive from this channel, don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Also, give us a thumbs up and share our content with all of your friends and family. It really helps us out. We also invite you to consider partnering with us. We're a nonprofit ministry with a mission to awaken the world to the power of the gospel. If you'd like to help us continue creating content, consider giving at the link on the screen or text the word donation to 21,000. If you want even more of our spirit-filled content, consider a subscription to globalondemand.tv, our subscription video platform. Thanks for watching.